Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. We'll begin with chapter 23, verse 27. As the Torah continues to go through the holidays, Pasuk says, Ach be'asor lachodesh hashvi'i hazeh, but on the 10th of the month, Yom HaKippurim hu. It is a day of atonement. Mikra kodesh yeh lochem. It should be for you a sacred declaration. V'nisem es nafshosechem. You should afflict your souls. V'kraftem ishe lashem. And you should bring an offering to God. Okay, there's an interesting Orach Chaim on this pasuk. Orach Chaim pasuk Chav Zayin. Yom HaKippurim Mikra Kodesh Perush below Emtsos Kriyasa Moso Kodesh. This touches on an interesting discussion in the Gemara. We call it the Day of Atonement. Let's say a person doesn't do anything. Person sits home, and just, doesn't go to shul, doesn't fast, flicking lights on and off. Do they tap into Yom Kippur or do they not tap into Yom Kippur? So the Orach Chaim says what it implies in the pasuk is that this is a day of atonement regardless. It's a day of forgiveness. Ubelo inui, without making it a day of declaration of sanctity, without any affliction, Shabbos Animbo, Yom Kippurim mitzad atzmo. In other words, the first description in the pasuk is that it's the Day of Atonement, implying before these other things kick in. So, in addition to whatever power of atonement, there's more mitzvos in the fact that it's a day that you make holy, in the fact that you afflict yourselves in this way. This is a subject of much disagreement in the Gemara, but I think everybody would agree, whatever you say about if Yom Kippur kind of works on its own or not, everybody would say it's certainly more impactful if you sign up for the program. In other words, if you fast, if you pray, if you do tshuva, if you refrain from prohibited activity, so on and so forth. But just it's an interesting perspective on the pasuk. Okay, let's jump ahead to verse 40. Another very famous pasuk. This is now on Sukkos, and the Torah gives us the mitzvah on Sukkos. Ulekachtem lochem bayom rishon. Take for yourselves on the first day. Creates hadar kapos tmarim, ba'anafi tavos v'arbinochal. This is the description of the four species: the lulav, the esrog, the hadasim, and the aravos. Usmachtem l'fnei Hashem elokechem shivas yomim. And you should rejoice before Hashem for 7 days. Just as a technical aside, before we get into a kliyakar on this pasuk, there's a very important thing learned from this pasuk, which is that wherever a person is on the first day of Sukkos, there's a Torah mitzvah. Women actually are exempt from this mitzvah because it's a positive time-bound mitzvah. Women, of course, may perform the mitzvah if they would like, but they're not obligated. But men have a Torah mitzvah to do lulav and esrog on specifically the first day of Sukkos. And that's because of this very pasuk, because it says, take for yourselves on the first day. And that's the mitzvah. It's not a Torah mitzvah to do lulav and esrog for the entirety of Sukkot unless you're in the Beis HaMikdash. And that's the end of the pasuk. It says, rejoice before Hashem your God for 7 days. So if you're before Hashem your God, everywhere in this world is before Hashem your God, but when we use the terminology before Hashem your God, that's code for Beis HaMikdash. So if you're in the Beis HaMikdash, it's a mitzvah for all 7 days of Sukkot. But if you're not in the Beis HaMikdash, which is the case for all of us today, then it's only a Torah mitzvah the first day of Sukkot. So why do we do lulav and esrog throughout Sukkot? The answer is, like many other things, it's a rabbinic mitzvah because they wanted us to be in the mode for whenever the Beis HaMikdash is rebuilt. So they said, you know what? We want it to be that people remember what it was like when there was a Beis HaMikdash. So in the Beis HaMikdash, they would do lulav and esrog for 7 days. Now we'll do lulav and esrog for 7 days. So that's just an interesting technical point. I'd like to see the second Kli Yakar on Pasuk Mem. Usmachtem l'fnei Hashem elokechem. Ein simchasam l'fnei Hashem ki im b'zman shehem ba'aguda achas. I'm sure many of you have heard before of various beautiful midrashim referring to the mitzvah of lulav and esrog as referencing a sense of unity within Klal Yisrael. That each of the four species represent another type of person among the Jewish people, and we hold them all together, right? That's part of the mitzvah of lulav and esrog. We hold them together. So the Kli Yakar is making a beautiful point that once you hold all these people together, now we can have joy before God. In other words, the first part of the pasuk talks about holding these species together, which could be representative of uniting different factions in Klal Yisrael, if there's such a thing as factions in the Klal Yisrael. And then the second part of the pasuk is rejoice. Ubifrat she'asimcha davka b'chag zeh. And also, it makes sense for there to be joy specifically on this holiday, the lefisha huzman asifa, because it's a time of gathering in the crops. It's the fall. Asher miderech ha'olam l'smoach ba b'yoser. It's very normal to rejoice specifically on this in this time of year. So it's a time where people are happy. They're inclined to rejoice in their successes. So now we need to channel our sense of joy, specifically have that sense of joy before God. There are other people who, when they want to celebrate, they channel that celebration towards having a really good party. And the truth is, sometimes when people have really good parties, it actually increases discord. Who do I invite? Who do I not invite? It's about the physical pleasure. But our goal is that when we have a natural time of simcha because of our successes, it should be lifnei Hashem Elokecha. It should be channeled towards connection to God. Okay, let's jump ahead to chapter 24, verse 10. Chapter 24, verse 10. Vayetzei ben isha Yisraelis, v'hu ben ish Mitzri, b'soch b'nei Yisrael. And there was a son of a Jewish woman, and he was the son of an Egyptian man. So it was a son of a Jewish woman, an Egyptian man. This person went out among the Jewish people. Vayinatzu b'machaneh ben ha-Yisraelis v'ish ha-Yisraeli. There was some kind of argument between this man, this child of that intermarriage, and this other Jewish man. And then the child of the intermarriage cursed God. That's in verse 11. And so they brought the person to Moshe. They said, we don't know what the deal is, but we don't think this is good. So what happens now? And now it says at the end of verse 11, and the name of his mother, by the way, was Shlomis, daughter of Divri, from the tribe of Dan. And they put him in jail to understand what they should do. And God instructs Moshe that he should be killed. Okay, this is a very confusing story, not the least of which reasons is there's no names floating around in the basic storyline until, like as an afterthought, we mentioned, oh, by the way, the fellow's mother was named Shlomis Bas Divri. Even though we already described him as being the daughter of the son of a Jewish woman. So you could have, for the same price, you could have said the son of Shlomis Bas Divri, but we just give this general term Jewish woman. It's very confusing. So what's going on? So let's see the Kli Yakar. There's various approaches to this, but we'll just see the Kli Yakar. Kli Yakar on Pasuk Yud. Vayetzei ben isha Yisraelis. Lo parat hakasav shem shel echad mehem. Lahoros shayu shneim pegumim. The Torah doesn't tell us the name of the person who cursed God, but the Torah also doesn't tell us the name of the person we got into the argument with. And you know why? It's to teach us that both of them were flawed. Ki kol hayotze lariv maher vadai hu pagum. Anyone who gets into a quick argument, sometimes we need to get into arguments because we need to stand up for what's right. But anyone who just in the blink of an eye is in an argument, there's something lacking there. And anyone who gets into these fast arguments are not people of note. People who are lacking. And by the way, we're saying that these people who act in this way, so quick to get into an argument, he's coming from people who are nondescript. And again, it's fascinating. It's not only the person who did the Avera that the whole question was, what do you do with this sin? It's the person who got into such a fast argument with him as well. Something negative happened through someone who deserved for something negative to happen through him. Because this Jewish person got into this argument with the fellow, that's why he got so angry and he cursed God's name. So not only did this person get into an argument, but he conducted himself in a way that caused another Jew to disgrace the name of God. Don't think you don't have a share in that. It was because of your interaction with him that happened. So it's really interesting. Just glance ahead for a moment. So God tells Moshe what to do with the person who cursed. And now it says in verse 17, by the way, person who strikes another person should die. Verse 19, a person who places a blemish on his friend should be punished. What happens when a person strikes an animal? Gosh, we just want to know what the halacha is when someone curses God. What are you telling me all this for? Kli Yakar says it's to show these are all interconnected. If you think the issue here is that someone cursed God, you're missing it. It's tragic that it got to the point that someone cursed God, but there's a broader issue here. We shouldn't be having these disputes in the first place. And that's what God is conveying by including these instructions. All of this is indicating the downside, the terrible nature of dispute. Peace does not come from discord. The result of discord is damage and pain. Skipping ahead about 8 lines or so. Okay, he gets now into a different point. Sorry. Excuse me. So in any event, it's a very interesting idea from the Kli Yakar, this concept that, I think it bears reflecting on every now and then. We love to figure out who should get the finger of blame. Who's at fault? You know what? When there are difficult situations, it generally is both people. Not always, but frequently it's both people. Just something to think about. Real fast, I want to see the Orach Chaim on Pasuk Yud Aleph, V'shem Imo. Tzarech ladas lama lo hiskir shma b'tchila k'shehizkiro aravaso Moshe. Why didn't it mention the name of his mother at the beginning? V'yishlama b'shnei drachim, 2 approaches. Ha'echad l'shabeach al zad derech v'yaviu oso Moshe v'shem imo. Perish gam hi michlal ha'maviyim. One way of saying it is that what we're hinting to by saying her name after it says that the people brought him to Moshe is that she also brought him to Moshe. Even though it was her own son, she was equally bothered that this happened. And she participated also in the objection to everything and bringing him to Moshe. The other is not so flattering. The point is that they brought her to Moshe, and now once we say they brought her to Moshe, we want you to know who his mother was. What does that tell you? What that tells you is we don't fault her for the fact that her son did something inappropriate. That happens in life. Everyone has free will, but she tried to defend him. In other words, they brought him to Moshe, and now she gets named because she was trying to defend him. She was trying to object to it. So that's the other pshat. So we discussed this morning the Orach Chaim's perspective on what the pasuk teaches me about Yom Kippur. We discussed Kli Yakar about true simcha comes when we're united. We discussed the Kli Yakar and the Orach Chaim about some details of the story of the person who cursed God.